It led to the identification of 8 key problem statements that really reflect the concerns of users, operators, and across those cities. With that effort recently completed, we now look forward to the exciting things that will come in phase 2, with startups now developing solutions and prototypes to answer those challenges by the end of November. So it's coming very, very soon. As part of this work, we are excited to bring together 3 international workshops to support the rollout of a challenge phase of a Transport4All project. This will cover transit data collection, management, and sharing, the session today, resource optimization and planning, the session in 1 week, and informality in transport, the session that will come next. We have assembled a panel of speakers that will bring together the best of what's happening in India and beyond. The goal is to create a new cohort of companies focused on addressing the pressing challenges of urban transport in India. Today, the focus will be on transit data collection, management, and sharing. And broadly, it answers to 4 of the problem statements that were collected through the cities: digitizing transit route and schedule, transit route rationalization, bus and staff scheduling, passenger information, and ticketing. But without further ado, I would like to turn to the person who started all this effort for introductory remark by Shri Kunal Kumar, Joint Secretary and Mission Director for the Smart City Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Mr. Kumar, please share with us your vision of this challenge.
Thank you, Gerard, for that lovely introduction. I think you put in good perspective the intersections between various technologies that are playing out in modern times and how we can, as people interested in improving cities, can leverage them to improve lives of people. I think this is an exceptional program, a unique one in the sense that it has brought together many different kinds of stakeholders. For example, the World Bank, ITDP, and many other community organizations. We have cities and states and Startup India and so many different other organizations who are working together with us to ensure that we are able to create high leverage solutions through innovation that can support the growth of public transport in our country. And this workshop series for people who are participating in the challenge, innovators and startups, I think holds a great value for all of them and for all of us as well, because for them, because they understand the nuances of what they are into, and through the best of national and international experts, and a lot of discussion around what this challenge entails, what priorities should they focus on, if they have any issues regarding participation, coordination with cities, etc. I think those will also come in and will eventually be beneficial for them to participate better. It's beneficial for us because we come to know, what hinders innovation in this space, and how do we support innovation in this space better. What are those issues that startups have, especially in the context of public transport, which need to be resolved. So, and any other issues that they may have. So I think it's a good platform for mutual learning that has been created. I'm indeed thankful to the World Bank for putting together this workshop series, because a lot of effort has gone behind this entire challenge in this particular effort, where I think getting together knowledge in quick time, in 3 weeks, the challenge time period is short, so you have to just pack in everything in that time period, so that the broader perspective as well as the specific micro perspective, the link and the clarity can be created. So I hope all startups and everyone who is participating in the challenge will take interest in this workshop series, participate in them, and make best use of it to enhance the quality of your participation. To my team and to all of us who are facilitating this, I would request that we document everything that is said, and try to use the feedback that is generated to quickly resolve any issues if there may be, or if there are any issues of understanding, if there are any issues of coordination, if there are any issues of specific data, etc., which is not getting resolved. We should be quickly able to resolve them once they are talked about in these conferences. So I will stop here. Wish the workshop series all my best, and looking forward to hearing from the best minds in the space and working with you to create meaningful solutions for the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. Thanks for bringing both the broad perspective, a need to be detail-oriented at the same time, the need to be very careful in that transformation, because it really tries to move the needle on one of the most challenging problem of all, one that impacts everybody as it moves. So to start with, I would like to turn to a description of the challenge, problem statements that have been outlined up to now, and the process, which will be presented by Shiva Subramanian Jayaraman, national lead for ITDP India. He has been anchoring the Transport4All challenge from the ITDP side, and also a close partner in many of our undertaking across India. So Shiva, please present to us, where we are in respect to the challenge.
Thank you, Gerard. I just want to check my voice is clear, Gerard. You're able to hear it clear? Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
So,
thanks.
Yeah. I hope I'm in the slideshow, like, full screen. Gerard, able to hear? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Gerard, for the introduction. And I think when I see, especially when to remind to this challenge, like when we initiated the challenge in April 2021, I think when we were designing all those the phases of challenge, the one of the phase when the startup community was supposed to be brought in, and that was the most exciting part. And we were very curious to know like how they're going to help with the city and how the marriage is going to happen between the startup and city. And eventually we're going to end up in bringing some indigenous solution for city specific requirement. And that's where like we were looking forward. And today the journey of the startup initiative has just started, and we are very keen to see like how this grows and how we are going to help the cities and how cities are going to get benefit, and eventually citizens are going to take advantage of this. So my presentation will have excuse me, I think I just went. Okay, my presentation will have will speak about the journey till now and also the way forward. So the vision, especially when we were working with the ministry and when we were trying to design it, that time we started with the C4C, Cycle for Change, Street for People, and Nurturing Neighborhood, where the ministry was initiating. And that time we were trying to find out the missing gaps, and we thought the public transport and especially the formal and informal transit needs to be given that sort of attention. And that was during the COVID time when we were talking about contactless and other reasons where public transport was not getting that sort of aspiration among the people. So thought of bringing some digital innovation, where Kinak Kumar sir gave us the go ahead about thinking through and helped us to formulate this particular challenge, and where all partners were brought in together. And the intention was to bring the city citizens together, and also the startups to think how indigenously the products can be developed for the city specific requirement, and that can be scaled up later, not only to that particular city, also to the other cities as well. The solution areas, I think in the broader areas, what we tend to see was fare product and payment solutions, service planning and monitoring, and also the passenger information interactions. So all those things which were very keen in terms of addressing to the digital innovation approach. And we thought there are gaps. It's not like cities are not working on the space, but we felt that there are opportunities which needs to be given much more attention, and also how startup can really play with cities from the scratch to develop such solution, and which will fit exactly with the city's needs. And the challenge was split into 3 stages. I think the first stage was about the problem identification, which was a very extensive exercise which we had gone with the city. And later on that, we wanted the startups to take up whatever the city has identified, and which is the solution generation. We'll let the startup to develop the prototype and the pilot stage. The stage one, I think we really wanted to emphasize this because the startup community needs to understand that the level of intensity where the cities are really worked to get there. It might look like an 8-problem statement, but we have given a lot of effort, and cities are given so much of the time and energy towards it to get those problem statements. From 148, there were 100 cities shown interest. From there, 40 cities went for an extensive surveys, which were towards to understand the citizens' requirement, the operators' requirement, and also focus group discussions to understand the qualitative and quantitative data for the city's need, and which comply to come to the problem statement identification. And now on the Environmental Day this year, when our Honorable Minister, along with Joint Secretary, had inaugurated the outcomes, like the results of these surveys were brought in, and I think this is the document. I think it was inaugurated during the session, and which had really covered the needs and requirements of cities and citizens, and which was really appreciated, and a lot of people really looked upon, and a lot of downloads happened. I think I also request the startup community, whenever you get time, this is available on our website. You can have a look at it. This is I think it captures the city's needs, and it's a combined approach. We are also getting requests from cities that can you do it for city specific requirement. One we did for Salem as well, which was very much appreciated because the data is covered for all 46 cities, and it's also available individually as well. And if you come to how the problem statement had from the study, whatever we did, and how had curated. So you can say that there are 8 problem statements has been identified. The first one is a tool for rationalizing of transit route and frequency, very much important for the public transport authorities to understand and rationalize their planning. The spatial tool is very important. Like a lot of cities do not have that space of having the spatial tool, and we thought startups could also help in developing the spatial tool. The tool for scheduling of public transport and transport buses and staffs, transit performance monitoring tool. The other problem statement is the reliable passenger information system and integrated multimodal journey planning and ticketing, passenger grievance redressal system, monitoring of transit fleet health, and managing maintenance of schedule. And the last one is about the informal transit with IPT, which we really wanted to see like how IPT aggregation and monitoring solutions can be created. I think this complies and it has been brought up in such a way that it really tries to fit into any sort of a city's need and requirement, and that can be seen that whatever learnings from one city can also be taken up to other cities, and the scale up also can happen. And I think just wanted to introduce to the 46 cities which are qualified, and I think it is a plethora of cities around the country. And there are states which shown much more interest, like Maharashtra and Karnataka, which have a bunch of cities taken to the next stages. So on November 14th, I think we had officially launched the stage 2 of the T4A, where the gateway for the startup community was open, and the startup communities were asked to come for registration. I think this really gave us the way for us to stage 2, and a lot more things coming into stage 2. I think we want to like to showcase that also right now. So the startup eligibility criteria as per the EPIT regulations, I think the 5 criteria has been identified: company age, company type, annual turnover, original entry, and innovation and scalable. I think this particular part will be covered much more when Ria is going to present. I think we have a following presentation with Startup India. I think I will not waste my time here, so I will give it to Ria to take up this. We have our website available, and we have a page available. People want to know, there's a QR code you can scan and see. I think the Startup India page has all the needs and requirements for startups to see how to take up and participate in the challenge. And the stages have been seen into 4 different levels. One is that by 30th, we wanted the startup to register with their idea pitch to solve their problem. The good news is that we already started getting people getting registered. We started getting the idea pitch as well. I would say that other startups needs to really start coming for registration, because we have limited time right now. And by 20th December, a panel of experts of challenge team will screen the pitch, and we'll be taking the startups and we'll be selecting the qualified startups. And the good news is also that we were also planning for an offline workshop, which will be conducted with the selected startups along with cities before 30th January. I think this is where we're going to really bring in the cities and startups together, have a day workshop, and more interaction and networking can also happen to understand and discuss with other cities as well. By 30th Jan 2023, the startup develops and presents a solution for evaluation. A jury of expert will again will facilitate in terms of evaluating the solutions. And by 15th February, the announcement of the 16th winning startups and solutions will be made. The jury consists of the panel, and we will be selecting 1 or 2 winners from each problem statements, and on basis of value proposition, product characteristics, product cost, team feasibility, and variety of solution. I think the award price ranges from up to 20 lakhs per solution, and based on the intensity of the problem statement, the award price also will vary, and which will also be communicating to the startups very soon. And this was the most important phase, and we had various suggestions, and thanks to Kunal sir to frame it off, and we came up with the award dispersal format, where the 40% of the prize amount will be given to the startup at the stage 2 award winners announcement, and remaining 40% after finalizing the solution and after testing with the city, and 10% submitting the pilot project results, and 10% after the announcement of the stage 3 winners. And need from the cities, because when startup coming, we also need that startup needs, when they have to engage with city, they are also looking for certain things. One was the important aspect is the data. What sort of data available, because the problem state might be interesting, but if the data is not available, it might be difficult for startups to work with those problems with a limited period of time. So we're also working with cities when some top prerequisites. The first one, we have requested them for the adoption of the startup procurement policy guidelines. Second is the share of requested data with the startups, and work with the city and create a space where both of them share their views and ensure that they develop an indigenous product for the city specific requirement. Then the stage 3 pilot testing, it's also again into 3 important phases. One is that by March 2023, the city procures the service for the startup from amongst those winning solutions in the stage 2 for the scale up of the pilot. And and by April to May 23, the startup pilot will their solutions to scale in a real life condition for a 2 months of period of time, evaluating the robustness and efficiency of the solution, which needs to be seen that how it fits to the city's need and how citizens are using the solutions. And during this process, we also wanted to see that the NGOs and academic institutions who are also part of the Transport4All task force will also support along with the startup for helping in the pilot. The ministry, with the assistance of the challenge partners and the panel, will review the submission, and by 31st we'll be completing that process. Startups with successful pilots shall be showcasing by the ministry on the City Innovation Exchange platform to enable cities and procure the product and services for expansion. And I think we have covered, and just to have more details about the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. I think the stage 2 and stage 3 has been covered, and stage 1 is already completed. And like to thank all our challenge partners, especially Kunal sir, for the directions and the amount of interactions we were able to make with the number of letters sir had helped us to reach out to them. I think that really paved us a lot of way for us to engage with cities, especially Rahul sir, and also Sampath from Smart City, the person who we are coordinating to take the whole challenge together. I think we have crazy calls, and I think I really wanted to thank in person, and also Sukhbinder, who's been helping us for the ministry, for connecting with the startup community, and also see like how we can take things forward. Next, I would like to thank my team, Vaishali, Faraz, Smriti, Aditya, Aishwarya, Suvi, and Varsha, and also people behind as well, Ashwati and Kashmira, who have been supporting us, the whole team, and giving us the moral support. And from Startup India, I would like to thank Astha, Binil, and also Ria for all the supports they've been giving, and Sikh, Arun, and Vish for the support. Finally, our knowledge partner and the team which has been behind this stage 2 and playing a very important role. Our World Bank with Gerald is being like always receptive, and though he's not in India, but wherever he is, we're able to connect to him, bringing the right experts. Prashant for giving his time and all the support he's been providing, and also to Andrew and Benika for the supports we are getting. Looking forward to taking this forward and anything. And we are also planning to host some T4A clinic for startup community. If you have more details, more doubts, we'll be happy to support you. I think we will be communicating to you very soon about the T4A clinic. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Looking forward for this. I think the future of the technology which we going to try to evolve through this T4A challenge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shiva. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the role you have played in pushing this forward throughout. And I think listening to you, it's very clear that we are coming to a key moment in the Transport4All challenge. And the key moment is when startups looking at the problem statements are going to submit their proposals. And for that, let me turn to Rhea Anand, Associate in Startup India, to tell us a bit more on the registration process and some of the ways of making it smoother. Rhea.
Thank you, Gerald, for the introduction. I will quickly share my screen. So I'll be giving you an overview of what the DPIT recognition process is and how you guys can avoid making mistakes and ensure that once you submit the application, it gets approved when it reaches to us. So we have a definition of startup, which is either you're a legal entity in terms of private limited, limited liability, or a registered partnership. The company cannot be more than 10 years older than the date of incorporation. The turnover cannot exceed 100 CR, and there should be an aspect of innovation, scalability, job, and wealth creation. So if you see from a bird's eye view, all you have to do is fill the application online, which will take about 15 to 20 minutes. And as soon as it reaches us, we process it within 48 to 72 hours, and you get the certificate online. So there's no physical aspect to it. Everything happens online. These are certain benefits of getting recognized by DPIT in terms of getting funding, tax exemption, as well as fast-tracking patents and relaxation in procurement norms, which do add to the DPIT recognition. So if you are a private limited or a limited liability partnership, you have to go to the National Single Window System in order to apply for the recognition. So first you have to register at NSWS, and then you can fill the application form, which I will be going through with you. And for registered partnership, all you have to do is go on the website and you can directly apply from there. So this is how the form will ideally look like. We would require basic entity details along with the full address of the company. Now, when it comes to authorized representative details, this is something where a lot of startups make a mistake. So you have to ensure that the person who you're filling the details here is responsible for all the information that is there on the application. And there's also a letter of authorization that is provided in the application form. All you have to do is download it online and just fill the details of the representative from here itself. Then we ask certain details about the partners and directors, which is very basic, their name, number, email address, and the director identification number. We also require you to ensure that you choose the correct startup stage. If you are at ideation, we do not require any proof of concept, whereas validation requires either the prototype or the website link. Early traction and scaling, we do require a pitch deck at least. So this is again a reason why startups take a little bit of time in order to get the recognition, because the documents aren't attached properly here. Then there are certain questions that we ask, and the whole purpose of asking these questions are to just judge a little more about what the startup does and to know you guys better. So we would just require a simple answer as to what is the problem you're solving, how is it being solved, what's the unique value proposition that you're getting in, as well as a little about how you generate your revenue. Then comes the part of self-certification. Here we would require a complete disclosure as to if the entity has been changed from private limited to limited liability partnership, or the SIN has been changed, or the name has been changed. You need to upload certain documents regarding it. So this is again an important disclosure that a startup should be making. So it's just a list of documents that you would require while filling the form online, which is the incorporation registration certificate. We do not require a copy of PAN card, but the number is something that we do require. Even the director's identification number is something we require. And the proof of concept documents according to your stage is compulsory, along with authorization letter, for which the template is already provided. And there are additional documents that you can attach in terms of patents and the award certificates or anything that you have received. Now, these are certain common mistakes that we do face quite a lot, which is the documents have not been submitted properly and the links that are there are either locked or inaccessible. So please ensure whenever you upload, double check it. And there are only 3 chances that are provided, one after the other. After the 3rd chance, there's a cool down period. So that is again a thing that might delay your application. So as soon as you get one incomplete comment from us, please ensure that the next time you submit it, everything is in order. Even the authorization letter that's there, we require it to be on your company letterhead with the seal of your company and the signatures of relevant people. We also require the Aadhaar card of the representative. And please ensure you select the industry and sector relevant to what you are saying in the application form. And the details, again, has to be consistent with whatever documents you're uploading. And answers should not be completely irrelevant to what you're doing. We just require basic, simple English as to just understand what the startup is currently doing. So this is just a gist of it, and I will be staying for the Q&A session. If there are any questions, I would love to take it up today. If not possible, you can connect with us through a toll-free number or via email. All you have to do is go on the website and everything is available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rhea. We are really glad to be able to leverage on the Startup India platform in order to engage with all of you. It's really an essential pillar to make this program a success. So now we are done with the part on discussing the challenge and the mechanisms that have been put in place for you to apply to this challenge. There are a couple of links that are available for you to go into further details, to register and the like. We are now going to move to the second part of the session that really focuses on very concrete examples of how data is used today. And I have the honor and privilege to introduce the first of our 2 speakers. First, thanks a lot, Aaron, for waking up so early. We know you're based in Portland. We are your cappuccino or double espresso of the morning, and we are very happy that you can join. Aaron is founder and president of Trillium. He's been also the lead developer, 12 years of web-based development experience, 8 years experience in public transport, with a fine-tuned focus on how do you use data differently to understand, how people are living their experience with respect to public transport. So he's going to tell us about how the pairing of modern technology, communication makes transport more sustainable through a series of examples. Aaron, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. My name's Aaron. I founded a company called Trillium little over a decade ago, and we work in cities mainly in the United States, but around the world, maintaining and hosting GTFS data so that it can be used in third-party applications like Google Maps, and also used by departments of transportation for analysis. Some time ago, our company was acquired by Optibus, and that's allowed us to get a little bit more deeply into how this data is used operationally, really, over the whole course of its life cycle. And I want to present two projects today where we see two very different projects, where we see data used for traveler information, one in the US here in the state of Oregon, and another in Brazil, in southern Brazil, a pilot project where the community was interested in better traveler information. So two very different projects. Hopefully we can, some of these examples are useful for idea generation here, and I'll try and leave plenty of time for Q&A to answer your questions, or for discussion, because often that's the one of the most useful parts of any sort of discussion or presentation. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see how this works. I think this should be good to go. Do you see
Perfect.
using data management? Fantastic. Great.
Yes.
All right. So let's start with the basics. So GTFS data this was a data specification that was originally intended by Google and TriMet. TriMet is the transit agency here in Portland, Oregon. A data specification that was originally intended for passenger information, for making the trip planner in Google Maps work. And there was so much need for standardization, for global standardization of transit data, that I think this specification succeeded beyond the beyond the dreams or intentions of that Google and TriMet originally started with, to support a lot of different applications and to become a de facto standard throughout the world. So in addition to supporting customer-facing applications, it's also used for in planning tools. It's also used to support real-time information. And I know this might seem basic, but I think it's still useful to start with the lay a foundation, a common foundation for us to discuss. And so I want to walk through an overview of some of the purposes, some of the ways we see GTFS data being used, the core of the specification, and also the way that it's being extended. It is a living specification, so it's being used it's being extended to be used in new and novel ways. So our core static GTFS consists of stops, routes, travel patterns. One route might have any number of different travel patterns, the schedules and calendar. And it consists of a number of required and optional files and fields. And there's various extensions that make it possible for the various extensions that make it possible for GTFS to express other attributes of transit service, other kinds of transit service. So one of the one of these extensions that's gaining the most popularity, where we see the most momentum and I think a lot of need, is GTFS Flex, to describe hail and ride service, deviated routes, point deviation routes, zone-based routes, anything that's not a tradition, or that's not a fixed route service with fixed route, fixed stops, fixed schedules. And this is an area where we see a lot of application development, where we see a lot of new data sets being developed, also ongoing spec development, because with the variety of different transit service, the variety of different kinds of informal services and formalized demand responsive services, the specification is still being modeled in order to accommodate those. So I'm bringing this up because I know that informal transit and demand responsive transit is maybe part of this challenge. So one of our beliefs that's motivated work at Trillium is that traveler information is an essential part of delivering public transportation. And this has often, frankly, been, I think, forgotten by some of the agencies that we work for at times. They focus on putting buses and vehicles on the street and forget that that those services are more difficult to use and discover by travelers unless there's good traveler information. Returning to that includes, of course, those demand responsive services. So our goal is to see more of those services put on the map. So I want to return to discussing the GTFS for a second. So other extensions that are coming online include GTFS pathways to describe station layouts and pedestrian connectivity within stations, GTFS vehicles that describes vehicle amenities, vehicle configurations, say if you're especially relevant if you're describing rail service. GTFS fares version 2, this is an overhaul of the fare specification to describe distance-based fares, other sorts of complicated transfer rules. So there's a whole number of proposals at various states of adoption. And if you go to mobilitydata.org, I'll put up a link later on, you can see more of these specifications and participate in the discussions around their development. Also, real-time is an extension to static GTFS, real-time data that's updated every number of seconds, describing vehicle positions, real-time arrival estimates, and advisories, which requires equipment on board the vehicles. Oh, well, except for advisories. Advisories, of course, can be entered by dispatch from a control center. So any questions, comments so far before I jump into, I just want to talk about those two projects. Oh, here is a question. Can you expand a bit on GTFS pathways? Yes. Let's jump into that actually for a second. Okay. Do people still see my screen? It should say, just
no,
project.
it's a white screen.
A white screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to try changing the share for a second. Okay. Share screen. And I'm also going to put in the chat here. Now people should see GTFS pathways, is that right?
Yes, we do.
And I'm going to just put a link to a document in the chat so that everyone can follow along. Let's go over here to the example, the pathway examples at the GTFS.org site. So pathways, the pathways extension files, they describe station entrances, and exits, and then transit boarding areas and platforms. So this could be for a bus terminal, it could be for a rail station. So they describe the entrances and exits and the boarding and loading platforms, and all of the access between those points and impediments. So escalators, stairs, elevators, walking pathways, and fare gates. So this is an example of how this would be modeled. You would have nodes at the top and bottom of the escalators and the stairs in your stops file, and then pathways linking them. I think this is I'll make this a little bit larger. I think this is useful to look at because it shows the level of it shows the level of discussion that's happening around the specification right now. So this project might be an amazing opportunity to surface needs of local project areas within the specification development process. And this is a very open process. All right, since we have only so much time, I'm going to return to the presentation. And what happens if I go to slideshow again? Did this return to
Projects.
the slide deck? Excellent.
Yes, we are. Fine.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about two very different projects, or two somewhat different projects. One is with the Oregon Department of Transportation, I suppose here in my backyard in the state of Oregon in Northwest US. So this has been a project that started small in 2009, over a decade ago. Wow. In a US state of about 5 million people. There's a metro area with 2.5 million people, and then smaller towns all over the state. And so the project encompasses 50 transit agencies, and from very small transit agencies with a few routes to TriMet here with 100 routes. And the GTFS data, I think one of the crucial points is that the GTFS data is used for traveler information, and it's also used for analysis. And all of these feeds are at OregonGTFS.com. So they are made publicly available to interested developers and the third-party applications. The original purpose of this project was for passenger information, so that people could discover intercity services, could discover intercity and local services in Google Maps, and also to see how those services are connected. And today, basically anywhere you go in Oregon, you can discover transit services in this way. And the project has grown and extended over, or the scope and use of this data has grown and extended over time. And I think that's really the main thing that I want to, that I'd like to discuss and talk about today that draws some interesting lessons for us. One is extending the scope of the traveler information aspect, where some agencies, some transit services are showing demand responsive transit in an open source multimodal trip planner. This example here is showing an agency on the coast where there's call ahead service required. In Portland, there's this same trip planning software. This open source, open trip planner software is used to show bike to transit and other and scooter to transit and other multimodal trips. So after this, following this passenger information aspect, ODOT, the Oregon Department of Transportation, asked, what else can we do with this data? Because it was the first time that they had a comprehensive description of, transit capacity of the transit network. And so ODOT developed the open source TNEC software. It shows detailed analysis, basically the connections between transit service that provides planners with, a view of population served, and they use this in their planning process. So this allows them to highlight areas for improvement in the transit network and to coordinate transit service across different services. So they use this software to see stops, routes, and connections between all agencies within Oregon, and they have a variety of different reports that they're able to generate for their internal planning process on connectivity and access. So I think lessons, some of the lessons that I would draw out of this project were one that, building this value, there was immediate value and immediate value proposition, but like building the full value has taken years, and including, I think, getting support from transit agencies. That has been, this was a state-sponsored project, and a lot of transit agencies didn't immediately see its value and participate fully. And so they needed to see that it was going to endure and that their passengers valued this data, and that it was going to become part of, what was expected in the state. Transit agencies, they've incorporated GTFS data into powering their websites, into their real-time information systems, and other functions. So that's made the data more useful if they're generating their timetables, if they're generating information out of the data, and also feeding that into their real-time passenger information and AVL, basically using the GTFS to configure a real-time system. Region-wide data has brought benefits and meant more access. It makes new kinds of trip plans possible for interregional planning, and on the passenger information side and on the analysis side, made new kinds of analysis available. And then using the data in multiple ways has created more value and efficiency around that data. And then there's some placeholder text that I need to replace. Let's see. One other example of how Oregon is using this data is for the Key Transit Hubs report. All right, so I want to talk about any questions before I move on. Next up, I want to talk about a project in Farroupilha, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. This is a project that we worked on in 2017 and 2018 with Caravan Studios, division of TechSoup, a nonprofit. This project, I believe, had funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and some other sources. The goal, this project went through a similar ideation phase where local community members identified problems that they wanted, that they saw that data and mobile apps could help solve. And the community members said that the transit schedules are difficult to use and difficult to understand, and they wanted an app to help solve this problem. And a team worked to deliver a solution to that problem. Farroupilha is a city in southern Brazil with a population of around 70,000. And, this is really a cool initiative here where data collection was performed by high school students. And these students were just amazing. They were, and did more than collect data. They were assembling, they were helping to understand this transit network and put the data sets together. So we discovered hundreds of distinct patterns on the bus routes, and came into this project with, the network was actually sort of mysterious to almost everyone involved. So step one, volunteers rode buses, step one involved volunteers riding the buses in order to collect stop locations. There's a lot of sort of duplication of those stop locations. So we would get multiple samples sometimes where the routes overlapped. So the volunteers' data was assembled together in a big map. And then we eliminated duplicates. And we did this in, kind of intensive few-day workshops so that there was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of energy, and we were seeing the data set come together as people were collecting data. So next step, volunteers used Trillium's GTFS Manager software to connect the stops and draw route alignments. And the route alignments were generated automatically from OpenStreetMap. Then as part of this workshop, we visualized data on a map. So this is our interactive map that shows all the stops and route alignments as it's being inputted. And, this allowed volunteers to see the collective output of their work. And then the data was published in the Transit app. So the Transit app was, they were more amenable, more nimble than, say, Google Maps, and able to ingest that data and make the trip planner available. I want to draw a few lessons here from Farroupilha. The project was a really cool project, but it suffered from a lack of engagement from the local government and the operator. So the volunteers were highly motivated. They were highly motivated to understand their transit network better, but the local government hadn't, made a mandate that there needed to be GTFS data. They were currently discussing that. And there was, and the operator sort of, because of that, engaged reluctantly. And there was, they sort of struggled to explain their service to the project team at some time. Our local volunteers, they were incredible. And the transit app, they were really ready to come to the table and work with us. I think in general, mapping apps want data. So if you approach third-party applications with data, they're going to want to partner with you and figure out how to work together. Okay, questions.
I think maybe one question from my side. I don't see questions on the question and answer yet at this point, but a question, Aaron, on the relevance of GTFS versus other proprietary solution. And I'm sure the answer is pretty obvious, but I think it's worth emphasizing in a country like India, where you have so many cities trying to implement the system at the same time.
Yeah. And I see a question here in the chat. Does the project idea have to be based on GTFS? And I saw a reference to GTFS at some point in the project documentation. So that might be someone else might answer that question. But let's talk about GTFS versus other data specifications. So there's transit data specifications in use all over the world. The US actually had a mandated standard over a decade ago that ended up not going anywhere, essentially wasn't implemented. And then this voluntary specification, GTFS, became a standard. I think it was because it was lightweight and useful. In other parts of the world, we see Europe with TransExchange and ITEX, and the Transmodel framework. We see companies around the world with proprietary data formats. I think GTFS doesn't solve every problem that we need to solve with transit data, but some of its, some of the reasons why it's useful is that, some of its advantages is that it's in broad use around the world. So there's validators, visualization software, third-party application. There's a lot of open source software built around this data format. So that means if you have the data, it makes it possible to do more with it. And since it is an open specification, there's an organization called Mobility Data, and I'll just go to their website for a second. There's a nonprofit organization formed around mobility data, or formed around GTFS, called Mobility Data. And this makes it possible for all stakeholders to have a voice in how this specification is developing, as opposed to a proprietary data format, or for data formats that might just be used in a particular region rather than are global in scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. First, thanks for a very rich, contextualization with two projects. Very, very useful to see different, applications. We are going to pause right now, move to the second speaker, and come back to you afterwards for the plenary conversation. So thank you. Let me now turn to our second speaker. So moving from global to India, we are really honored to have Mr. Surya Sen joining us. He's an officer not from the transport sector per se initially. I think Indian Forest Services is a different function, but he has served various leadership roles across the government departments since 2013. and more relevant to the topic today, has taken over as a Director of Information Technology of BMTC in September 2021. And over the past 1 year, he has spearheaded several key initiatives towards digitalization, as well as electrification of buses in the city of Bengaluru. This included onboarding solution providers for the automated vehicle location system, mobile ticketing, and electronic ticketing machine, which also included the procurement of 1,300 electric buses. So, the part that I would like to mention last is that he also initiated the Friends of BMTC, where user groups are called on to, sharing their views on how to improve the service of public transport. And that's why it's important sometimes to bring people from outside the sector in, because they bring new ideas. We have seen that in a number of cities like Bhubaneswar, like Bengaluru. So, Mr. Sen, the floor is yours. Very much eager to hear what it took to implement those systems and what were the challenges.
Thank you, Gerald. Am I audible?
You are perfectly, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I am Surya Sen. I had a very brief introduction, so I don't want to reiterate. So directly going into the today's challenge, basically. So the challenges in implementing open data policy or anything open data information of a transport sector per se, public transportation. So let me be a little brief, and then I'll go into the presentation that I have for you today. So we are a government, basically. So I represent the government, and the whole initiative is from the government side, happily. All said and done, government is very, as an organization, is a very rigid place to work for startups. So that is a kind of a caution that I would like to give, because that is what Aaron has also told, that even Brazil is same. So there is no big difference with respect to Brazil or US or with respect to India. The government is always the big daddy. So that is the major thing that we all need to understand. And there is lots of checks and balances which is put in the government systems for its own good or its own bad, that we can say. But definitely it will help us in a long run if we really need to implement something in the government sectors. So all said, so BMTC is the biggest urban transport, bus transport company in the country. We own around 6,800 buses, and we operate around 5,700 buses on a daily basis. So the scale and density matters a lot here in the country like India. So when it comes to scale, when it comes to the density, when it comes to the digitizing this scale and digitizing this kind of a data, so definitely there is a very big opportunity for data per se. So like what has Aaron already mentioned, we are not having a standard protocol on which we should even make our data available for ourselves. Let it be it alone the startups which comes later. So as a company ourselves, we don't have any kind of a standardized protocol as of now, and we are still in the scratch. And many of our companies don't even have a digital data where to even take up any decision on showing it to others, or giving that is the second chance by means of finances, by means of the resources which is available, the skilled manpower. So most of it is a challenge for many of the cities as on date in the country, and that is where we need to invest right now. And I'll just quickly share my screen. Yeah, is the screen visible, Gerard?
Yes, it is. It is perfectly. Thank you.
So yeah, BMTC is the biggest public bus service provider in the cities in the country. We extensively cover around 90% of the residential areas and 82% of the workspaces. So it's a big number, and it's a big population. It's a big city. We can compare ourselves to Istanbul. So that is the scale in which we operate in Bangalore. and we carry more than 3 million passengers every day. So that is a big number when compared to cities like states like Oregon, if you take it as a state itself. So the state population is not even half the city's population here. So that is the scale in which the Indian cities operate, basically. So passenger information is the key to this, because as I have already mentioned, we still cater to only 30% of the city's population. So still 70% is left out somewhere, unattended by us. So that whole 60% is either not my passenger, or either he is a private car owner, private bike owner, or a person who chooses some other mode of transport, finally burdening the city's infrastructure. So that is the key that which we need to address, and also to retain this 30%. So everywhere people talk about retainer values and retainer capacities, especially in the business administration. So I have already a catchment of say 30% of my population of the city, and how am I going to hold to them? That is something again which as a company we need to see. So passenger information is something which is a really game changer, which will make that happen to us. Unfortunately, we are not to the level in which the passenger expects. Even though the passenger is digitally not so savvy, even though the passenger is not even having a digital access, still the passenger information is less with respect to many of the city transportation, including Bangalore. So if a person is not having a digital access, what kind of passenger information that we are doing? So basically we have lots of timetables, lots of bus stop signages, lots of bus stop timetables, lots of other means of disseminating the information of the schedules, disseminating the information of the stops, the routes. All those things are still untouched by many of us, and that itself is a big scope on passenger information. Later comes the digital penetration. So BMTC is currently piloting its second generation passenger information system. So we already had a system which got obsolete. So we are trying to build a new system right now with the government of India's support. So we are in the verge of testing everything, and again, lots of user interface is required, and lots of user acceptance is required. So it's very difficult for us right now. We are going through the user acceptance now, and we are trying to find out lots of problems and making solutions for that. So that is the way we are trying to go forward in the passenger information per se. So we had our ITS in 2016. That was the first time we implemented the vehicle location tracking systems and passenger information systems. But unfortunately, again, that is the first attempt, and we could not able to succeed completely because of various reasons. And it is not new only to the cities like Bangalore, and it is there all over the world, including Transport for London. So the same problem we have also gone through. Now again, we are rebuilding from scratch, trying to put our real-time information back to the public, putting display boards in the bus stops, again functions of the depot to be automated, and planning and scheduling our schedules. So all those things are being rebuilt, and again with the added features, kind of inputs taken from all you people, because every time when we discuss something, some new kind of a thing comes out, and finally we have to implement it somewhere in our system. So this is the time that we are getting right now to implement these in the system on a real-time basis. So we are still, it's a continuous process. So we are still trying to understand how to reach the last man standing. That is the total idea of passenger information for us. So it's not only the digital penetration, it should be the last person who is completely inaccessible to be made aware of public transportation. So that is where we had lots of discussions and other things. So we had this PIS right now ideated based on the expected time of arrival, which is again calculated based on the normal GPS database algorithms matched with your the historic archive data of your the ETAs and other kinds of third-party data like MapMyIndia, TomTom. all the other data which will run to your background to give you a proper ETA, which is kind of a homegrown algorithm which is being implemented in this, rather than only depending on the Google Maps or any other single source. We are trying to match lots of other information into it and try to get the ETA out of it, including the GPS which is there in the electronic ticketing machine. So there are 2 GPSs in place to get the real-time data of the bus. One is in the bus which is already installed in the AVLS systems. The other is in the conductor's hands, because in India we operate the crew with the buses with double crew. There is a conductor who's having an ETM. So that is how we wanted to corroborate the GPS locations to a better accuracy. And also as a backup also, because many a times the bus GPS fails in the country because it can be tampered. The crew is very susceptible to tamper the GPS, and sometimes there is vandalization, sometimes there is the whole bus itself breaking down because of various reasons. So that is why we have a double mechanism where the location is properly taken out from the bus in one way or the other. The next is this ETA may be provided by BMTC to the third parties based on the data shared openly through one or the other agreements. This is where the open data systems comes in. So as I mentioned already, governments are very, very skeptical on sharing any data to the third party. So how are we going to achieve this is the question. Whether do really government want to share you the data is the question. The answer for that is yes, because as from BMTC at least we want to make these data open, so that we wanted to have a better kind of information dissemination to the public, be it through any kind of a system. And why we consciously choose this decision is because this problem cannot be solved only by BMTC or the government for that matter, because as you all know, government has its own challenges with respect to human resource, with respect to mind, with respect to finances. So keeping the data with us will not take us anywhere further. So and especially this data, what Aaron has mentioned in the previous session, on a GTFS format, that itself is a big challenge for us to make it in a GTFS format. So right now we don't even have a GTFS format data to be shared to somebody who really intends to do something out of that data. So that is the situation that we are all right now in. So right now BMTC is trying to make this GTFS data formats, because we have a very, very huge network of buses, around 2000 routes and more than 5800 schedules operated on a daily basis. So it's a Herculean task for us to really have a sensible kind of a duplicate free kind of a error free data which can be shared to public, which can be shared to people like the startups. So that itself is a big task for us right now in front of our hands. So these are the challenges, as I already mentioned. So accuracy of the bus stop and route database. So that is something which is a very important thing, which BMTC is still trying to fight it out, because every time when my people digitize the routes or the bus stops, there may be errors that can be corrected. Again, it has to be re-verified whenever there is a new route which is added, because we have lots of routes getting added, lots of buses getting added, bus stops getting added. So all those updation also requires a standardization and also requires a kind of a routine exercise, which is not right now there in the systems. Again, schedule mapping, which is again very important. Technical capacity is the constraints, as I told you, because we don't have a trained manpower in the department to do that. We don't have transport planners, we don't have GIS experts. So all this has to come from outside, or either I have to go for a consultancy, again, which runs on a very, very temporary basis. So these are some things that that are at the system level, systematically needs to be addressed. That is being taken care at the level of BMTC as of now. So whenever we do a project, we always go for a vendor. So we call for a tender, we call for a contract, and we give it to a vendor. So finally, there are lots of issues with respect to vendors also, which comes in. So right now, what the methodology that we adopt is that we have to have a internal team that is capable of handling these issues, because these are something which is fundamental, and these needs to be addressed from within the BMTC or within the organization for that matter. So especially the management of database, and also the servers, and also the architecture of the softwares which is going to be built, everything needs to be in-house. So the capacity building has to happen at that level for any of the corporation or any of the public bus transport company in the country as of now matters. So again, Mohua is going to play a very important role, and people like ITDP, UITP, and WRI, everybody is very much interested in making public bus transportation affordable and accessible to everybody. So I hope this will be a success in, say, a couple of years down the line. So that is the prediction or the expectation that we have as officers on this particular challenge. Going forward, yeah, so this is what Jara was mentioning. So knowing our inability and inefficiency, so we told that, okay, we will open it to public. So let us start a group and let us share the routes and route informations and schedules to public in a social media platform, so that let them start having conversations within themselves and start the problems, and let them try to understand the issues, and then let them try to give solutions for the problems raised by public. So mostly we get lots of feedbacks and requests on routes and timings. So right now, Friends of BMTC is a Telegram group basically, which is handled by administrators, and it is very religiously monitored by lots of bus lovers and bus freaks, I can say. So they are giving lots of guidances on people how to travel on a public transport, especially in the buses, and what kind of routes to take, what kind of buses, what numbers needs to be taken, route numbers. So these kinds of lots of healthy conversations are happening right now in the Bangalore's social media domains. Again, we keep on updating the routes on a very manual way in these fora, so that the information is properly spread. Even this also gives us a very positive feedback and a positive image to BMTC, saying that yes, we are at least having one-to-one conversation with the public in the times now. So we are having a standardized platform right now, which is coming very quickly. So once that standardized platform comes in, so all these things will become a very different ball game altogether. So when we are in a position to share the information to public on a real time. So till then, we need to do all these kinds of activities, which is again a fun activity. At least we can have a one-to-one conversation. At that time, we also receive lots of comments from public for various other kinds of feedbacks, also on operations and daily operational issues and other things. So these are some of the learnings which we had from the open systems for passenger information. So ITS is the backbone. So that is something which we need to understand. The ITS has to come from within the organization. So that is somewhere the bus companies are missing, because most of the times, including BMTC right now, is outsourcing it to somebody else who is doing the work. I'm not saying that we should not outsource the work. I'm saying that we should have the ideation within ourselves. So the ideation is very important, and the ideation comes along with the guidance and proper field expertise. That expertise also has to be there within the BMTC. So that is where we are trying to invest right now. Again, the hardware procurement is something which we need to invest on from the outside. So let us make the softwares in-house and hardwares to be procured, because every 2-3 years the hardware keeps changing. So previous years I used to have a very analog kind of ETM machine. Now it is all Android powered. So it is matter of 3-4 years, everything has changed. So tomorrow we don't know what comes in. So now we are trying to install bus validators, as in the case of many other foreign countries. Again, try to go conductorless, because we all operate with 2 crew, double crew, which is completely an unviable solution as a company if we see. So these are some things which will really be possible only with the advent of digital interventions into the systems. So need to inject new skilled manpower and train existing manpower. That is the important key thing which we are trying to do now. And data standards and data management is something which we are working on. So national level ITS, yeah. So when even Aaron was talking that USA cannot even till now make this GTFS as a standard format. So even in country like India, we still have to make the chance, take the attempt to make something standardized and have a national level portal or a proper passenger information system at the nation level, at least at the data structuring, at least at the formatting level, so that it can be easily integrated with lots of other multimodal options available right now in the country. So these are the things which I wanted to very briefly touch upon. So coming to startups, since all of you are here for a challenge and you have lots of problems in front of you, giving a solution is something which is very tricky, because as I already mentioned, governments are very closed and rigid to new solutions. So how are we going to put up the solutions and what will be the impact of that solution is the matter. So it is not always very big to be shown in front of the governments. It's always something which should be very small and which should always make a big difference. The simplest example that I can tell is recently we have launched digital bus passes. So we issue bus passes, which is a very small segment on ticketing. It is not even a very big segment, but making the bus passes digital has made lives of many of us very easy, including the person who is sitting in a pass counter who issues the passes. So digital passes has almost captured around 40% of pass market, which is again a very small market, but still. So people have shifted completely to buying the passes digitally and validating them in the buses on their own. So that has also brought them a kind of ownership on the system. So previously what was there was the conductor's responsibility was there on validating this person. Now the ownership has changed on to the passenger who has to validate the passes. So that has made the passenger realize that he is valuing the service that I am giving him. At the same time, he is trying to understand that it is his system that he has to maintain and he has to manage. So the ownership, the sense of ownership is increasing with respect to the customer using my service. So that is a win-win for both of us. And this is a very small intervention that we have done. It's not a big thing, but as a startup, that is always a very good start to invest upon. So again, there are some examples that we have shown here. Establishing data systems, data standardization, cost reduction of PIS. So these are some things which we are already, most of us are talking, but could not able to come up with a proper working solution. And many of the cities have already come up with some working solutions also. Only thing is the scaling up, which is all that we need to see in the coming days to come or years to come. So we are always open to strong collaborations. We have already collaborated with many of you here. And that is how we work in BMTC. And this is the brief from our side. I can take questions in the Q&A if it is required.
Thank you so much. So yeah, very useful, very also open in terms of both what you have accomplished, but also the challenges. And I would expect nothing less than an entity like BMTC being located in Bangalore, which is really a hub for IT and the service industry, to really try to push the envelope as we move forward. So a few questions. We've run a bit over time, but I think it's worthwhile certainly go through some of the questions that have not been answered yet. One is, and I think, so yeah, you mentioned it very well, you know, the city of Bangalore is changing rapidly. And, you know, I mean, it can be because the city changes, metro lines open, the connectivity evolves, you may have special events like floods, etc. So, you know, what are the challenges you face in updating, you know, the system? I mean, you mentioned a few of those, like no staff available with the right, you know, skill set, essentially, to update the digital system. But what are those key parameters that would make your life easier to move forward on that. Number two, you mentioned that you don't necessarily have a skill set. So are you looking at training your staff? Are you looking at bringing in new staff so that you're able to adjust the skill set at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, we all know the city dynamics changes when the metro comes in. So that is happening right now in Bangalore, which happened some 5-10 years back in Delhi. So when the metro comes in, unfortunately, Delhi didn't plan its buses properly. That's what I can say. But why it cannot plan is because we don't have any kind of a data set that really gives us a proper analysis on how to change our plans. So here also it is the same. In Bangalore also, we don't have a proper data set to understand how the planning is to be taken when there is a big disruption which is coming like metro. Right now we are trying to concentrate on a trunk and feeder method because we were using the hub and spoke model. So we are trying to shift slowly towards the trunk and feeder, where the metro will be the trunk, and even my own high density corridors will be the trunk, and there will be feeders. So we are trying to invest on smaller buses because Bangalore is a very terrainous city. So we don't have a proper road network, road infra with respect to the width of the roads is concerned. So we have to invest on smaller buses, so that we are trying to do. And we are trying to change most of our traditional routes and traditional schedules based on the requirement of passengers. So that is where this groups like Friends of BMTC comes in, where they not only suggest us the routes, but they also ensure that there is patronage for those routes, because they do the PR for us, be it talking to the resident welfare associations, talking to the industries, the laborers working in the industries, the educational institutions. So lots of buzzes happening in the field with respect to one-to-one conversations which is happening from the BMTC and the public. So definitely we are going through a small change, but the larger change comes when we have a proper data flowing into the system. So right now it is, even though a capital for the IT infrastructure, but still we don't have a proper manpower, we don't have a proper infrastructure on manpower to be working on this. Unfortunately, that is a sad thing, because finding a good IT resource in Bangalore is a challenge for government organizations. That is the truth. So we can easily get them in Bhubaneswar and Ahmedabad. So that is the truth in Bangalore. So unfortunately, we are not having a proper support on that. We are trying to get some good resources on higher basis also, and also to make my people also sensitive towards, because our team is a very small team and not even number of 10. So that team is basically an administrative team where they can try to move the files and get the files done, and try to do the works in the offices as much as possible with respect to the IT as a field sector or something of that sort is okay with them. But they don't know to do coding, they don't know to do formatting, they don't know to do other kinds of analysis, and even inferring something out of that analysis. So that is not the skill set which is there with them. We need to definitely bring in new resources, and even startups can help us in doing that, because right now we are using a startup to manage our ITS systems right now, or on date. So that is how we are trying to progress, so that we can have more knowledge partners into us, and then use them to build our knowledge, and then we can mutually trying to coexist by any means in which that startup also can benefit out of some way or the other that they can think of themselves. So that is how we are trying to do here. Then the second question is again, just a minute, I missed the question. Yeah.
No, I think you cover it well in terms of the overall capacity building and the flexibility. Yeah. And what I would like to do now is to, I mean, obviously Bangalore is significantly larger than Portland, but I would like to hear from Aaron a bit how you're also creating a solution that evolves, right? I mean, even in the US, the environment is quite dynamic in terms of changes, maybe less transforming. I mean, not transforming as fast as in India in terms of things happening, but it's still very much changing day to day, special event, etc. How do you create a solution that is able to evolve over time at the level of public transport agencies? What tools are available in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I think we found that open standards and also open source software are two keys to enabling that evolution. What we've there's quite a number of legacy vendors who've basically used closed data to lock lock scheduling functions to trip planning and traveler information functions, and to analysis functions, that has stifled innovation at times. So opening up, one of the key innovations of GTFS, and it's not just GTFS. There are other open standards, but GTFS is the one I talked about most, and has the most global reach. There's hundreds and hundreds of applications and developers that are using that data in different ways, experimenting. Basically each of those applications is sort of an experiment with the data. And if you're building around a standard that has real momentum and broad use, you're going to have a choice of a lot of different applications. And so I think what that means, your question was, how do you enable experimentation, adaptation, innovation, and change? What that means is that if you have your data encoded in this way, it makes it possible to change systems much more easily, because you're going to have greater choice of developers, of vendors. You're going to have various open source or closed source software that you can sort of grab off the shelf. If you want to do a pilot, you'll be able to start that pilot more quickly and try different ideas. So chances are, if there's a certain analysis that you want to do, or a traveler information function to implement, like for example, Open Trip Planner with demand responsive or informal services, someone's done that or something like it in the past, and it's possible to apply that solution. So basically, yeah, open data just relieves a lot of lock-in.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And for the sake of time, we are 5 minutes over schedule. We are going to turn to Shiva and Rhea for any follow-up on questions raised regarding the challenge itself.
So Gerard, you're asking, do we have any questions, or
if there was any question in the chat or the that you want to answer? I think there were a couple of questions on startup registration.
There was one question which was asking, if a startup intends to participate in different cities with the same problem statement, how do you take them? So eventually we have looked up on such possibilities and scenarios, because we were seeing that if one startup working on multiple problem statement, do we allow that? Or a startup working on same problem statement in different cities. We have not putting a restriction there, but we are saying that the price amount will be given only to one company, though you're trying to outspend yourself to support. But we are saying that they have to think wise here and to see that how they really help in transforming a city in terms of coming up with the requirement what the city is given. And I think if they see their time in terms of wisely, I think they can decide how they really want to take it up with other cities or other different problem statement as well. Yeah.
I believe as one question for startup registration, which is how long it might take to obtain a DIPP recognition number for an early stage startup. So the startup stage doesn't matter because irrespective of the application that we get in, we take around 48 to 72 hours to process it. It's just that the documentation for an early stage or an early traction startup is a little more in terms of putting in the pitch deck as well. So it doesn't vary as per the stage. It's just the document has to be as per the application, and just be careful about filling the application form before submitting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we are going to bring this event to a close. I want to thank a lot, obviously, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Mr. Kumar in particular for his opening remark, but also the entire team with whom we have been working for now more than a year on the surveying and the like. ITDP, obviously Startup India, CIX, Urban Transport, you know, who are the key locomotive behind this program, and obviously the two presenters, you know, Mr. Surya Sen and Aaron and Trim, who have really shared some valuable insight as to what works or what doesn't work so well, and some of the pitfalls and challenges as one move forward. Very useful, very insightful, and certainly aspects that we will be able to work on or think about as we review the proposal made by the different startups as they come along. I also want to thank my team, actually, Bianca, Prashant, Ravi, Jen, and others who have been working on putting this event together with all of you. Thank you for all participants for staying at this late time of the day, and for Aaron for coming so early in the day on his side. So with that, you know, I will bring this event to a close. We'll have a second event in a week, and we'll be going further into the next topic, which will be focused really this time on looking at other parts of the challenge and questions that have been raised up to now. So, you know, thank you very much. Wishing you a great day. I hope it was useful. A recording of this event will be available if you're interested to look at some sections of it again. Thank you, and please apply to the challenge as startups. Looking forward to your wise and strong ideas to move forward public transport. Have a good day.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Looking forward.